Good evening and welcome to the Steve Malzberg Show from the National News Desk of Newsmax TV. I'm J.D. Hayworth here to tag team with Steve Malzberg tonight. As we've explained earlier this week, we're in the process of putting together a newer Newsmax New York, and so Steve is, kind of telecommuting. He joins us via Skype. Steve, I guess for the Democrats, it's the big night. Hillary Clinton accepting her party's nomination.
It is, and it's going to be very much of a contrast because she's the worst speaker probably of all the big name speakers that we've seen leading up to this. And something very interesting, just a kind of a side note, but I think it's important. Earlier today, Brian Stelter on CNN, this convention is outdrawing the Republican convention so far by 3-4 million viewers. Donald Trump hates that. He's big on ratings. He understands it all. And then I see a story that talks about night 3. And when you add up all the different networks that covered prime time, night 3, they're down 18% compared to what the Republicans had on their night 3. So that's interesting considering it was Biden, it was Obama, it was a huge night last night, and they couldn't match the Republicans. So we'll see what happens tonight, but it's going to be, Hillary in all her glory. Let's see how she does.
I will have some thoughts specifically about this speech next hour on Newsmax Prime. But Steve, as we were reviewing all the material and all the oratorical flourish, and I use that term very loosely, we see a guy who used the advantages on the Senate floor, the debate and speech clause, which lets you go to the Senate floor and say anything you want to about anybody. A guy by the name of Harry Reid, he is retiring, but he's still very much there. And it looks like Harry Reid is trying to do this year what he did back in 2012.
Right. Of course, you're referring to what he said. He went to the floor of the Senate and said Mitt Romney hasn't paid taxes in 10 years, which was a lie. And after the fact, famously, he smiled and he said, yeah, it worked, didn't it? So this man has no scruples, no problem with being dishonest. We know that. So today, of course, tomorrow, Hillary and Trump start getting their national security briefings. So let's watch what Harry Reid had to say about that.
It's obvious that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's obvious he can't control his mind or his tongue. And what I've suggested, if now, because he's the nominee for the party, and he's entitled to briefings from the CIA, for example, I said publicly, give him fake briefings. Pretend you're briefing him. Don't tell him anything that you don't want to get out.
But as a Republican nominee, isn't he entitled to get those briefings?
Give him fake briefings.
What does that even mean?
It means they'll tell him stuff. He won't know the difference.
He won't know the difference. Now that I'm telling you, even if this was workable, he's telling everybody in the world that they're going to be fake, and he won't know that. I mean, this guy, I wonder sometimes about his, shall we say, ability to serve.
Well, he's not going to be serving much longer, but let me make a point he may not have intended, and that is the fact that we have heard from people within the military intelligence community not willing to come forward by name, but how the intelligence briefings for the current commander-in-chief have been tailored to take him away from any bad news. So again, the old leftist trick of projecting onto your political opponents what in fact is your practice, that may be the case. Harry Reid may be telling us the truth about the current guy in charge rather than the Republican nominee.
Right, and of course, Hillary with her security problems. Let's go to some of the things we heard last night. They had a common theme. First, it was Joe Biden, and let's listen to him.
We cannot elect a man who belittles our closest allies while embracing dictators like Vladimir Putin. No, I mean it. A man who seeks to sow division in America for his own gain and disorder around the world. A man who confuses bluster with strength. Think about everything you learned as a child, no matter where you were raised. How can there be pleasure in saying you're fired? He's trying to tell us he cares about the middle class. Give me a break. That's a bunch of malarkey.
I tell you, they're doing a pretty good job of really trying to destroy his character and who he is, much better than the Republicans did about Hillary. I'll say that. Then there was Mayor Bloomberg, for the nanny, the man who won't let you drink a soda if it's too large, the man who wants to take your guns away. They trot him out for this.
There are times when I disagree with Hillary Clinton. But let me tell you, whatever our disagreements may be, I've come here to say we must put them aside for the good of our country. And we must unite around the candidate who can defeat a dangerous demagogue.
So J.D. Biden called him a demagogue, Bloomberg called him a demagogue, and then there's the demagogue himself, Barack Obama.
That's why our military can look the way it does. Every shade of humanity forged into common service. That's why anyone who threatens our values, whether fascists or communists or jihadists or homegrown demagogues, will always fail in the end.
So you see, they were organized last night, JD.
Well, it's part of the Alinsky playbook. Isolate the target and then attack. And of course, that's what's happening rhetorically. Tell you what, Steve, let's welcome in a couple of guests. And first, we're very pleased to be joined via Skype by Kurt Schlichter, retired Army colonel, senior columnist at townhall.com. Kurt, I really enjoy your stuff. And also with us by telephone, Christopher Hahn, a Democratic strategist, syndicated radio host. And if memory serves, Chris, I think you used to work for Chuck Schumer back in the day, correct?
That is absolutely right, JD. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, pal, we're going to mix it up pretty good. It is great to have both you gentlemen. Kurt, let me first go to you. Politics meeting policy, rhetoric and reality. All the talk we've heard from the Democrats about the Russians and the emails. Is there any truth to what they're saying about that?
Well, hi, JD. Thanks for having me. Look, I'm actually a Cold Warrior. Right over there in my office, I have my certificate of Cold War participation. So I don't need lessons from a bunch of pinko snots who spent their 80s marching around telling us to unilaterally disarm, teaching me about the Russians. It's ridiculous. As we all know, Ted Kennedy went over there in 1984 to enlist the Kremlin's help in kicking out Ronald Reagan, the guy who eventually beat the Russians, much to the dismay of many of these same Democrats, who yesterday booed Leon Panetta at the mention of our military. So I don't need bear fighting lessons from these guys, JD. I find it hilarious that they're trying to be tough about this. They're like a teenager, JD. You know, the mom goes in and finds a little baggie of marijuana in the teenager's room, and the teenager's response when confronted is, "Oh my gosh, you invaded my privacy!"
This is
please give me a break.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's let Chris get in now. Chris, tell us why the Russians are not a convenient political prop. We're going to give you a chance to answer that.
The Russians aren't a convenient political prop because Donald Trump is dangerous to the national security of the United States of America. And I am shocked to hear a Cold Warrior like your other guest there thinking that what he said yesterday was anything less than outrageous. It is unbelievable that a major party candidate would call on our biggest adversary on the world stage to intervene here in the United States electoral process, regardless of what you think of Hillary Clinton, regardless of what you think about the Democrats, which, by the way, were all over-the-top lies. But whatever you think about them, that is un-American, unpatriotic, and it is obscene.
Okay, first of all, Donald Trump did not put one American life at risk the way the FBI director said Hillary Clinton may have by being careless and reckless with national security. Wait a minute, and national security information. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to know from you, Christopher, what about the racist, bigoted, homophobic, anti-Hispanic, anti-woman, sexist emails that the leadership of the DNC put out, and then Hillary rewarded Debbie Wasserman Schultz with an honorary chairmanship in her campaign? How do you defend your leadership of the DNC?
Look, you can't control every email people say, and when you're in the battle of a political campaign, and hold on a second, guys, because I have worked on campaigns. I'm sure you all have as well. But you know what happens in the war and the heat of the battle. And I know the DNC should not have been engaging. But when they were protecting their party against a hostile takeover from Bernie Sanders, who is far to the left of most Democrats, I think that they were out there just floating ideas around it. It's been played,
knocking Jews,
by
knocking
Republicans
women, making fun of black women's name, knocking Hispanics, calling them taco balls. Yeah, that's normal. Give me
I
a
don't think
break.
This is really shocking.
Okay, all right, hang on a second here. Let's let Kurt get into the conversation. Go ahead, Kurt.
I'm offended by the Democrats' racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, and cisgendered racism, or did I say that already? That's been on display in these emails, which were stolen long before Donald Trump ever mentioned them yesterday. In fact, I'm baffled, JD, because I thought that Hillary's 30,000 deleted emails contained wedding planning and yoga appointment information. How could they possibly relate to national security? I mean, is your argument, Chris, that Hillary Clinton had items related to national security on an unsecured server in some guy's toilet? Why, that can't be, can it?
What you're mistaken is, this is an attempt for a foreign power to influence our election. And you, of all people who have defended our country bravely, and I salute you for your service, you, of all people, should be appalled by that. Even if it was a joke.
Christopher, you mean
Even if it was, hold on a minute. Even if it was a joke, it is something we should all...
All right, this is no joke. Gentlemen, hang on a second. We've only got a minute remaining. Steve, since it's your program, you get the final 30 seconds.
You mean the way Barack Obama used taxpayer funds to influence the Israeli elections against Benjamin Netanyahu because he despises him and despises the state of Israel? Is that what you're talking about, Christopher?
I am not involved with the Israeli election or the security of their government.
Well, you know, I got to tell, I appreciate you, Chris. It's a valiant attempt, but channeling the late John Boehner as Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing. I don't know if it's going to work tonight. At any rate, Chris Hahn via phone, Kurt Schlichter via Skype, and Steve Malzberg, whose show this is, our thanks to you all. When we come back, we head directly to Philadelphia. We'll talk polling, we'll talk policy, we'll talk politics with John Gizzi as the Steve Malzberg Show continues.